Hi everyone, welcome back to Visually Hidden Selects. I'm Peter O'Brien, and today I would like to talk to you about The Abyss from 1989, written and directed by James Cameron. This is, in my opinion, a severely underrated film. Funny enough though, this film came out in 1989, and in that same year approximately 6 films with a similar plot and theme were released, including Leviathan and Deep Star 6. Deep Star 6, coincidentally, was written by Louis Abernathy, who was a close friend of James Cameron and later appeared in Titanic as the character Louis Bodine, as well as some of James Cameron's underwater documentaries. James Cameron's script actually originated from a story that he had written when he was 17 years old after attending a science lecture, where they spoke about some of the technology that he employed in his film, namely the underwater breathing liquid. And that was the genesis for his story of The Abyss. How the other films came about, I don't know. Maybe they all attended the same writing workshop that season. Who knows? It's been known to happen. The film begins with a nuclear submarine crashing in the ocean. And so the United States military recruits this team of underwater oil workers to move their rig into the proximity and explore and search for survivors. They send a Navy SEAL team down to the rig to oversee the operation. All the while operating at those incredible depths, there are a lot of challenges that the crew faces. This film stars Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Masterantonio, and Michael Biehn, who is a James Cameron regular. He was, of course, Kyle Reese in The Terminator, Corporal Hicks in Aliens, and this was his final film to date with James Cameron, where he plays Lieutenant Hiram Coffey, who is the leader of the SEAL team sent to oversee the rescue and recovery operation. And in this particular film, he comes off as the antagonist, and it really is a very dynamic performance because he's not an antagonist in the classic kind of like, oh, he's a bad guy kind of a way. He's actually suffering from pressure sickness, which is something that occurs at great depths. And so his character over the course of the film progresses into an erratic and unstable state. His performance is really a standout in this particular film. I mean, the 3 leads, of course, Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Masterantonio. Ed Harris, particularly as the lead, he had to be available throughout the entire shoot, and his character does go through some grueling physical demands underwater. And even though it's his character, he himself had to endure those demands, and it just took quite a toll on him. But when you watch the film, his performance is nothing short of incredible, and Mary Elizabeth Masterantonio also gives a very strong performance. Of course, James Cameron has a great track record with writing strong female characters, not only in terms of their personality, but also their character. Sarah Connor, the evolution of Ellen Ripley, and Lindsay Brigman is right up there, but these characters are people working for their paycheck, doing what they need to provide for their families. And so you get very unique personalities from all of the characters. Kat, One Night, Hippie. They all have different attributes that make them distinct, make them unique, make them memorable, but also feed off of each other in a believable dynamic. There are no clones in this script outside of the military officers, and even they have their own personalities that develop throughout the course of the film. But all of the characters, for such a tight ensemble, are very, very unique and well-defined. And it was not an easy film to make. Approximately 40% of this film was shot underwater. And I don't mean it takes place underwater. I mean they were actually in the water filming. All of the actors had to be certified divers. All of them did their own stunts, and it's just incredible that they were able to rise to that challenge. The primary underwater set for this film was built inside of an abandoned nuclear reactor in South Carolina, and they sealed it up and then they filled it with approximately 7.5 million gallons of water, which was approximately 40 feet. And then they covered the thing with a tarp and then black beads to block out any sunlight because, again, they're supposed to be at the bottom of the ocean. So when you went into their set, it was literally falling into an abyss. At that depth, even though it's 40 feet, there's incredible pressure, and so they would have to occasionally decompress. They would have to come up and fill up their air tanks. All of these things they learned to work with and overcome. So it was not a very comfortable walk in the park shoot. The Abyss was a big studio film. 20th Century Fox produced this movie, and it had a pretty significant budget, and they were employing the most up-to-date technology. They were actually inventing technology for this film. One notable piece of technology that they developed for this film was it actually redesigned the divers' helmets. Traditional divers' helmets did not have an open faceplate, so these helmets were specially designed for the film to allow the actors to be seen and to be seen delivering their dialogue. This is actually the first film to have live dialogue recorded underwater that was used in the final film. They actually recorded it so cleanly that they actually had to put in the sounds of the diver's gear to make it more believable. This film is overflowing with technical merits. It was actually the first film to utilize Photoshop with regard to its special effects, and it is also the first film to have three-dimensional computer-generated images directly in the image as part of the plot. And there's a very famous sequence, it's known as the pseudopod sequence. You will know it when you watch the movie. It is very hard to miss, and that is basically the foundation of modern special effects. From that, they refined the technology and were able to shoot Terminator 2 and the T-1000 specifically. And then 2 years later, they were making the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. And it all started from the pseudopod sequence in The Abyss. So if nothing else, this film is incredible just for that, pushing the boundaries of the technology to be able to tell better stories and more engaging stories. Even though they were pushing the limits with computer-generated special effects in this film, they still relied a lot on traditional special effects. There are quite a lot of model shots and miniature special effects work in this film, but because of James Cameron's love affair with the ocean, he wanted to shoot it underwater for real, and so as much as he could, he did. There are some shots that were done in a smaller tank, and there are some shots that utilized models, but for the most part, it is a one-to-one, wet-for-wet, live-action, underwater filming adventure. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of energy, there's also a lot of drama, and just some very, very intense and adventurous situations. And so as a kid, I was just captivated by this story and by the setting and the location and the technology within the story. I especially remember liking the ROVs, the remote operated vehicles that they use to view things and photograph things. And of course, yeah, the submarines and then the moon pool. I just thought it was awesome. And so as a kid, it had a big impression on me that I then carried into adulthood. And when the special edition came out and they added all the extra footage back into the movie and you got to see the entire story as intended, that to me became the only way to watch this film. Even though it's a longer cut, it's a more fulfilling cut, and it gives it the grandness that you would expect from a James Cameron film. Of course, if you're going to watch the film and you're short on time, the theatrical version is just fine. However, you will be shortchanging yourself. I highly recommend the special edition. I just really love watching this film. I throw it on all the time. It is just an enjoyable adventure, and again, I have a nostalgic tie to it. Nevertheless, I feel like people who are interested in science fiction are going to really enjoy this film. People who like adventure movies will also enjoy this film, and people who like drama will certainly enjoy this film. It just packs it all in, because right from the get-go, there is conflict. And from that point on, the dial just increases. So that's it for The Abyss. I really hope you enjoy this recommendation, and if you do check it out, please leave us a comment, let us know what you think. We will be discussing it at length on the Visually Hidden podcast, so be sure to tune in for that. And until next time, see ya!